tell, do you see the road? I'm out to my soul into the size whenever the smoke clear out of my face and my picture perfect.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to Cypherfics. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the first part of, What If Harry Potter Enters Dragon Ball Super? Special note, this fanfic is written and a masterpiece of Gamer95 on FANFICTIONnet. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. To some, this world is the only one we know. To others, there are 12 worlds, to others, many more. But there is one strand that connects every world to one another, and that is the lack of connection. In almost every world, every realm, every universe, every pantheon, traveling from one place to another was either ludicrously difficult, or downright illegal. This was to protect the other realms from threats or issues which may cause more harm than good, even with the best of intentions. But that didn't mean contact never happened. Sometimes intentionally, almost always unintentionally, someone would find themselves on what one could call the transrealm riftway, and in less than a blink of an eye, find themselves in an entirely new world. And unless you had tech, most worlds would kill to have, the help/blessing of a god or entity, or the world's most insane industrial strength fishing line, going back from where you came from was nearly impossible. If you ask anyone who travels realms involuntarily, they could tell you as much. But sometimes, these events, which seem horrible in every way, can have a life-changing impact, even in the most unlikeliest of places, and this is where our story begins. MRGHWH. Where am I? Slowly, weakly, and with the mother of all throbbing headaches, a woman pulled herself up from the grass she currently lay upon, trying to gauge where she was, and how she had got here. I'm alive. But, what? No. That can't be. But dash. She looked around at the area around her. She seemed to be in a small local park. There was a neighborhood nearby with eerily similar looking houses, and then she heard a muffled voice. Turning, she saw a pair of legs sticking out of the ground. A pair of legs that could only belong to her worse half. That's impossible. Android 21 blinked in shock, looking at her hands. It was her, all right, no mistaking that. But she was dead. She had died, well, I guess not. Rising to her feet, Android 21 blinked in confusion and looked about her surroundings, deciding to ignore her counterpart for a minute, or possibly forever, she hadn't decided yet. She was on Earth, but it didn't feel like Earth. She hadn't been to any other planets, so she couldn't say exactly what it felt like, but it felt familiar, but wrong. She looked around at the area she was currently in and took in all the sights. It all looked normal enough. She wasn't sure where this eerie feeling was coming from. Perhaps this was some sort of parallel dimension. She also knew she had to get her other side out from the ground, but not before laying a few ground rules. She laughed slightly to the pun, and looked to her other half. Do you need help? She asked rhetorically. A muffled scream of anger was her reply. I can get you out. Another muffled scream of anger was her reply. If I get you out, you need to promise me you won't try and kill everything. I can't let you just kill anyone you want to. This time, there was no response. Then the pair of legs swung down and began trying to push at the ground in an attempt to escape by herself. The original counterpart sweat dropped as she watched her evil clone pushing against the ground as hard as Ahe could, her rear end and tail periodically shaking as she tried to struggle out. Evidently she didn't want to accept this rule. Look, I know that you aren't good, like I am. But if you're gonna get out of there, you need my help. Android 21 said matter-of-factly. It was clear her evil side knew this, and was desperately trying to think of any way to get out of this that didn't require the help of her good side. However, nothing she could think of clearly worked. After a few seconds, the evil version of the android stopped pushing and instead simply stood with her feet on the ground. She couldn't really speak in her situation, so she simply decided to move her posterior in a manner that she hoped resembled a nod. Grabbing the legs of her other self, it was another few minutes of pulling before 21 finally pulled her evil self up from the ground. The darker-skinned version of herself face down on the ground, growling in irritation, and clearly not happy with what had just happened to her. She pushed her face off the ground and began to rapidly spit out grass, dirt and even a couple of bugs before letting out a long growl of frustration that turned into a yell. That tasted totally disgusting. She pounded the ground with her fist for emphasis. Well, yeah. It's dirt. Android 21 shrugged. Like you. And everyone on this forsaken plan her evil side began, but suddenly stopped, looking around confused. Where are we? Why aren't the Saiyans dead, and why is this all your fault? Excuse you? You ruined everything. I almost had it won. If you hadn't jumped in with your whole goody two-shoes routine, I would have killed them and been able to eat to my heart's content. But no, it's apparently bad to want to eat a decent meal for once. Do you not hear yourself? Eating people is wrong. They could have families. The good android retorted, realizing she was effectively arguing with a mirror. Fine. We eat them too. Therefore, no one's left out. The evil half retorted, annoyed. Good 21 was shocked, how could she herself even think of such a thing? To hurt such a sweet, innocent little child. Oh, don't act like you hadn't considered it. What? Of course I haven't considered it, never at any point. Every single one of those thoughts were yours and yours alone. I would never eat anyone. I don't want to hurt people. I am not a monster like you. The blue-eyed android hissed to her red-eyed clone. We're the same person. Her evil half said flatly. Everything I've thought, you've thought. Everything you've thought, I've thought. So, stop acting like you're a blameless angel and admit to what you really are. I'm not a monster. Yes, we are. No. If I were a monster, why would I have joined your enemies to stop you? Why would you have purged me from your body to get rid of that annoying voice in your head that keeps telling you no? I was your conscience and you got rid of me. Right, but we're still the same person. Or, monster. Or whatever we are. Bad 21 rolled her eyes in annoyance. You think you can hide behind this act of innocence as if that excuses what we've done? We're a monster. It's all they think we are. So why should we be different? Because we can be different. We can be better. Sure. The pink android raised her hand with a smirk. You never said anything about not being allowed to attack you. Take this. She thrusted her hand forward and tried to throw one of her many beam-based attacks. Nothing happened. The two blinked, and then she tried it again, and again, and again. NGH NGH. NGH NGGH. Why isn't this working? Bad 21 shouted in frustration. The good counterpart watched in genuine surprise, and then tried to summon some energy of her own. Finding she could create attacks. Namely, an attack when sent her bad self back into the dirt. The dust cleared and the good half blinked owlishly when she saw her evil counterpart had ended up several yards away, once again buried in the ground, this time with only her peach sticking out, her tail swishing about weakly in the air. Ha! She blinked. Well, that wasn't what I expected. Still, it was good to know she had some level of control over her evil self. Even if that meant threatening and or hurting her, which she didn't want to do, but knew may be the only real option to control her. She was the one to deliver the final blow when they had last fought. Perhaps that was the reason she seemed to have gained all their power while her other half was left with more or less just her basic skills as a fighter. Still, how did they get wherever they were? That made no sense. The spirit bomb should have destroyed them completely, and yet here they were, somewhere that felt strangely similar to Earth, but also wasn't Earth at the same time. Could it be one of the other 13 universes? No, there wasn't the usual key signatures from those worlds unless of course, the worlds beyond Universe 7 were unlike anything they could have expected. With a thoughtful, she decided to run a quick scan of her surroundings. Currently, there seemed to be mostly the power levels of humans, yet there was one other power level one that contained an unfamiliar energy. It wasn't alien, in fact, it felt human. It wasn't like the Saiyans, or the Namekian, or even the Dragon Ball. What could that be? Unconsciously she took a few steps towards it, then remembered her evil half buried in the ground. What was she supposed to do? Leave her there? That seemed like a good idea, unless she got out, and then began hurting people again. 21 couldn't let that happen. With a sigh, she approached the rear end protruding from the dirt and put her hands on her peach, smirking slightly at the evil version's humiliation. Then she propped her foot on top of her evil clone's as. Gonna behave? The muffled no was a strong answer, but after a few moments, her evil side seemed to give in, even if it was just to get out of the dirt. 21 nodded, and pulled herself again from the ground, ignoring the vengeful look her evil side gave her. Android 21 just stared back at her evil clone impassively. The red-eyed android gritted her teeth with a snarl. You better have a good reason for just leaving me stuck in the dirt with my ass sticking for minutes. I had other things on my mind. No, you didn't. And you would know that, how? Because we're the same person, but you're boring. The good half of Android 21 sighed, knowing there wasn't much she could do about this. Her evil half was always going to be a problem, and she could only do so much to try and control her for the time being. But you know what? Forget about the totally humiliating and vulnerable situation you just put me in. Why the hell can't I use my powers and you can? How is that fair? I'll tell you how, it isn't. Not even a little bit. The evil android raged. The good side blinked again, biting her lip as she was uncertain of how to react. Finally, she pointed to a nearby rock and summoned her powers, turning it into a donut. Well, that still works. She noted, figuring they at least wouldn't go hungry for the time being. At least, not hungry to the point of needing to harm someone. The evil half stomped her foot angrily. Gross. I don't want to eat food that used to be a DMN rock, that's disgusting. It's so bland. It tastes like cardboard. The good half shut her clone up by shoving the donut into her mouth. The evil half paused, then spat it out like a petulant child. This disgusting. Well, get used to it. The gold half said with narrowed eyes. Because we're not hurting people anymore for food. Like it or not, I won't let you. The red-eyed woman stomped her foot against the ground in a petulant manner and let out a yell of anger. That is totally unfair. I wanna kill and eat people. I wanna kill and eat people. I wanna. Iwana. Android 21 was embarrassed watching her counterpart's tantrum. After another few minutes of ranting and roaring like a true Newfoundlander, she seemed to calm down somewhat. You done? No. Great. The good half sighed. Look, I don't want to hurt you, but we need to figure something out here. You don't have powers and could probably get taken out easily. You take that back. Android 21 responded by flicking her on the forehead and sending her tumbling back like a tumbleweed. The evil clone thankfully was not lodged in the ground this time, but rather she skidded to a stop and laid face down in the dirt with her peach sticking up awkwardly in the air. If that wasn't so mean, I'd honestly say that's kinda fun. 21 admitted quietly as her evil half pulled herself up. She was about to say something, when that weird power source she felt seemed to spike again. She couldn't say what it was, maybe it was a third one of her. Whatever it was, it had power, maybe it could help them get home. The good half turned to her devilish half to inform her of the plan, only to find the red-eyed clone rushing at her with a shrill scream. She stared with a flat expression as the evil half began childishly flailing her fists at her in a desperate attempt to hurt her. Stupid. JRK. Bully. I hate you, Miss Perfect Goody Two-Shoes. The good half merely held her hand out, stopping her evil half who kept trying to run at her, not noticing the fact that she wasn't moving at all. Still, she kept trying to run at / swing at her, but of course, nothing came of this. After a few minutes, she slowed down and seemed to have worn herself out. Listen, I may have found something that could help us dash. How? We've been here like 5 minutes. I still have our power, remember? I can sense others. And just now I sensed someone else with power. Power that I've never felt before in my life. Short as it is, this power is different from ours, or any of the warriors you fought, really. Like, what kind of power are we talking, here? I can't say. Ah, great. Good going. But I was going to say, it feels wild, as if this kind of raw power is yet to be properly formed. Perhaps something similar taught Hikai's assistants, before they learned how to properly control their powers. The good 21 reasoned, and her evil side shrugged indifferently. If it can get us home, or get me my powers back, whatever. She said flatly. Android 21 crossed her arms over her chest. We live much better when you don't have your powers. I think you need to learn how to make do without. Learn to start seeing others as living beings and not as meals. But that's all they are. No, they aren't. They're people with goals and dreams, and a want to do great things, and dash. They want to kill everyone on the planet for fun. 21's evil side said flatly, raising a fair point. You know who and what we fought back at the other place. 21 scowled at her evil clone. In case you haven't noticed, Frisia, Cell and their allies were exceptions to the rule. They were evil, but Goku and his friends were pure of heart. The evil one quirked a brow. I heard Frisia say he put the universe at risk for a good fight. Okay, so maybe that was a bad example. But my point still stands. And how many people did Vegeta kill? Well, Dash. Or the green one. Okay, but Dash. Or Goku, actually. They did what they did, but they became better people. The red-eyed android scoffed. Oh, and I suppose I'm supposed to follow suit. Just get attached to some stupid snot-nosed kid or something, play best mom for them and just give up my Evaville ways or something, is that it? No, but killing everything you see won't solve all your issues either. The good half of 21 shot back, getting a little annoyed at this point. There had to be a compromise, some sort of trade-off where both sides could be happy to some extent. But then, what was the point of trying? All her evil half wanted to do was consume living beings and destroy the world. Now that the power to do so was strppd away from her, she was going to be a petulant child about it. Oh, joy. The odd power returned, and 21 turned towards it. Hang on. There it is again. She remarked aloud. Come on, maybe it can get us out of here. She said before flying off, then remembering a few moments later her other half couldn't do that. Gee, thanks. Her evil side huffed, irritated, then widened her eyes in realization. Don't you dash. 21 was flying again, holding her evil half by her tail. The red-eyed android screamed and flailed around in a panic as her good twin flew forward with a purpose. Slow down, you're going too fast, I feel nauseous, you're gonna drop me, slow doin'. Finally, the two landed on the end of a street, and the red-eyed android looked like she was going to puke. She glared hatred at her good counterpart, whose eyes were shut as she slipped into what could almost be called a trance as she scanned for energy signatures. It was here and it was very close, just a few houses down from where they were standing. Opening her eyes, the blue-eyed android grabbed her clone by the wrist and dragged her down the sidewalk, sighing in exasperation as the evil twin seemed determined to make it difficult. She didn't know why, but this energy seemed to be growing as she approached a house. It felt like it was out of control, and maybe acting in agitation. She couldn't say, but something felt weird about this. She then felt another presence. This one wasn't quite as impressive. In fact, it was more or less just the average power level of the average human being. But then something caught her attention. A man yelling. At first, she thought her evil side was still being her evil side, but then she realized her evil side had stopped fighting back, and seemed either interested, concerned or confused. It was hard to say which, but in this moment, 21 was thankful for that. Is this normal? Her evil side asked. Even those egotistical Saiyans screamed a lot, but this feels different. Android 21 shook her head. No, this screaming isn't from the intensity of a long, hard fight, this is pure malice and hatred, she said softly. Her other half frowned slightly before turning to glare at the house. Well, it's bugging me. Make it stop. I think whatever the source of this energy is happens to be coming from that house, and I think it's being amplified by some form of pain, and dash. Great. We stop the pain, they owe us one, and either I get my powers back, we go home, or we get something decent to eat. The evil android 21 cut in, proceeding to kick the door off the hinges and halfway across the house. The good half of the android blinked, then sighed. Okay, this is progress, she wants to help someone. She tried to reason. Granted, it's for a very selfish reason and she's clearly seeking some sort of benefit for herself, no matter what that might be, but at least this time she's doing something good to get it. She let out a deep sigh. Still, if it was to help someone not get hurt, 21 was willing this one time to let her bad side hurt someone. Even if it was for wrong or selfish reasons. Entering after her, 21 blinked, taken aback by the atmosphere of the house. It felt cold, broken, hate-filled. She looked around with a concerned frown as she felt a powerful feeling of dread building up inside her. Something about this place was wrong, very, very wrong. Then she heard the sound of loud stomping footsteps. Boy! What did you do? A deep man's voice roared in anger, and then stopped short when an inhuman blob that made Majin Buu look like a supermodel appeared from around the corner. Hi. 21 waved awkwardly. The man stared blankly at her. You what in blazes are you supposed to be? Why the bloody hell are you pink? And what are you wearing? You're exposing too much, you ruddy harlot. Okay, so that's uncalled for. 21 replied flatly. Second, there's something going on here, and we're here to dash. A thin, rather unappealing woman was suddenly thrown through a wall as the evil side of 21 stepped through the hole, looking to her exasperated good side. What? She asked, defensively. What? She was hurting a baby. Isn't helping a baby a thing good people do? She asked, her tone dripping with sarcasm, but the other side of 21 was taken aback by the implications of someone harming a newborn. She snapped her head over to look at the horse-like woman with wide eyes. Why would you hurt a baby? What is wrong with you? She demanded in a slight panic. Petunia simply looked up and screamed. Leave, you freaks. Her evil side, upon not hearing any cries to stop, decided that she had the green light to go nuts, and did just that. She viciously tore into the thin woman, not literally, but she may as well have, before looking to the obese man with twisted glee. Normally, 21 would have tried to stop herself, but the news of an injured baby was overpowering everything else, and she hurried off to ensure they were no longer in harm. She tried her best to tune out the fat man's screaming as her evil half beat and tortured him, and closed her eyes to try and sense where the little one could possibly be. She then felt it again, the mysterious power. It was in a small cupboard underneath the stairs. Frowning softly, she slowly reached over to pull the cupboard open. Inside was a small, frightened, abused and bleeding ball. 21 recoiled in shock at the sight of it, and then she began to panic. What was she supposed to do? Who should she turn to for help? Should she do anything? She had to. Okay. One thing at a time. She forced herself to calm down and breathed slowly. Taking a better look at the small boy, she realized he was terrified and shivering, clearly thinking he was about to be hit again. He curled in tighter to himself and let out a soft pitiful whimper that made her heart clench. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean it, don't hurt me," he whimpered softly. Android 21 bit her lip at how terrified and hurt he sounded. She decided she had to say something. She couldn't just leave him wallowing in his own terror. "Hey sweetie. Can you look at me? I'm not here to hurt you, I promise, believe me, I'm your friend," she said softly. "I didn't have friends, I'm too freaky for them," the tiny boy mumbled out, and 21 wasn't sure she heard him correctly or at all, but that wasn't important now. "Hey, it's okay, come on, I just want to make sure a cute little sweetie pie like you is safe, that's all," she replied again, trying her best to be reassuring. Her tone was soft and gentle, but she wasn't sure if it was enough to help things right now. Harry hesitated for several seconds before he decided he at least wanted to know who was going to give him his beating this time. Slowly, he moved his hands away from his face and looked up, and he was astounded by the woman standing in front of him. She was really pink and her hair was really long and her eyes looked really, really nice. "Aw, you're so adorable," the woman cooed with a warm smile, pulling Harry close for what he assumed would be some sort of new punishment, but he felt himself being held close to her chest, but gently held at that. He didn't feel his body cracking, he didn't feel his bones breaking, he felt safe. Was this what safe felt like? For her part, 21 couldn't believe anyone would ever harm someone so small and cute, and she had just met him. He looked like a 2-year-old, and Android 21 felt the need to make sure he wasn't hurt, ever again. She took a deep breath and gave him a small smile. Okay, you see. You're okay, you're just fine, you don't need to be afraid of me, I'm a good robot person thing," she assured him gently, bouncing him in her arms slowly. "Now, sweetie, why don't you just go ahead and tell me your name?" "Oh, okay, Harry, my name is Harry, ma'am," he replied softly. Android 21 let out a soft giggle and gently stroked his hair. He really was adorable, so shy and quiet and very well-mannered for his age. Although she wasn't sure what his age was, if she was completely honest. He seemed small enough to be 2, but sounded like he was 5. She didn't like that, it gave her a really bad feeling about what had happened to him, aside from the visible injuries the poor thing was covered in. "Ah, that's a cute little name," 21 remarked with a closed-eye smile. "Are you okay? Are you bleeding at all?" Harry hesitated before nodding his head slowly and presenting his arm to her. She grimaced at the sight of the grisly-looking gash that was seeping blood right through the sleeve of the boy's far too big shirt. "Oh my goodness, that looks awful, we need to clean this up, right away," she said softly. Turning on her heel, she headed for the kitchen. Miss? How come my aunt and uncle are screaming so much? Are they really mad right now?" 21 stopped for a moment, unsure of what to say or do. For the first time ever, she wanted to join her evil side and absolutely kill whomever dared lay a hand on the little boy in her arms, but she knew that was wrong. But at the same time, who cared? Like, really, if she hurt them, that was retribution for their actions. Great, now I'm starting to reason with her, she mentally muttered. She took a deep breath and smiled softly down at the boy. "They're being punished for hurting you, sweetie." She heard a horrible crunching sound that very much resembled the sound of an entire carton of eggs being crushed by an anvil and winced. Very, very, very severely punished, but don't you worry about it, let's just go and get your injuries dealt with, okay?" "Okay," she carried him past the scene with a deep sigh. "But I can't," Harry mumbled. "I need them." "Huh?" 21 blinked, looking down at the little boy, confused as to why he would say something like that. "Sorry, what was that?" "I deserve them, I've been bad." The pink-skinned woman stared in shock. "Oh my, what have they done to you? How could they get you to think something so awful? You don't deserve this, not at all." "Why not?" Harry asked. "Because you're just a sweet little boy, no one should be hurt like this," 21 exclaimed, hugging Harry again and trying to comfort him. She sensed this was where the power had been coming from, but what had caused him to be hurt? Was it because of his power? She gently placed her palm over the boy's forehead. Okay, I think you must have some kind of buried power inside you, so I'm going to try to unlock your potential for you, okay, sweetie? She asked gently. Harry looked at her as if she had said the most bizarre thing ever, and 21 didn't wait for an answer. Placing a hand on his head, she channeled her ki and did her best to heal the small boy, frowning in annoyance at the wounds which faded, but wouldn't fully go away. Most likely he'd need medical treatment to deal with them, but thankfully, he wasn't bleeding anymore, so that was good enough for now. And after she dealt with that, she focused on the other things she wanted to do. Okay, you got this. It's a simple matter of seeking out his potential and drawing it out. Here we go. Focusing intently, she put all her energy into trying to unlock this child's full potential so that he would find an understanding of his powers and be able to use them at their fullest potential. It took but a minute for her to pull it off. She found it all right. It was hard to miss considering how much power there was. But it was also weird. It felt like nothing she had ever experienced before, like a new sort of raw power, that was similar to ki, but both stronger and yet weaker. It felt like it would need to be channeled through other means than the typical ones she knew. 21 didn't know what it was, but she was curious, but also wanted to get the little boy healed first and foremost. She also wanted to ask those monsters who hurt him why they'd do such a thing. After all, such power had such great potential to be of use to the human race. She wasn't sure how, but she just knew. With a soft sigh, she finished awakening the latent power dwelling within this child and slowly removed her hand from his forehead, smiling softly. There you go. How do you feel now that oh my? Your injuries are healing so rapidly now. The simple act of awakening Harry's powers had had the extra effect of making his magic heal his body much faster and more efficiently. However, this also seemed to oddly terrify the small boy, and 21 didn't like watching him fidget and try to repress an oncoming panic attack. She didn't get it. These powers, they were awesome. Why was he so afraid of? He was hurt because of them. She realized, and felt like she had been stabbed. No wonder he's so frightened. She let out a sympathetic awe and held the boy closer to try and ease his fears. It's okay, I won't let them hurt you. My sister is already punishing them for doing that, remember? Just try and take it easy. Harry whimpered softly and looked up at her timidly. She gave him her best smile. Let's go outside now, okay? I can't. I have to stay in my cupboard until it's time to work again, Harry mumbled, and 21 blinked in shock. His words, once again, left her speechless. Thinking quickly, she thought of an idea and smiled. Well, I have a job for you, then. She lied. Come outside with me. Harry nodded obediently, feeling any sense of hope die in his chest. He had hoped this woman was nice, and wouldn't hurt him, but if he had to work, fine. There wasn't much he could do, anyways. 21 walked through the back door and sat on the steps, setting Harry on her lap. There, your job is to sit here with me and make yourself comfortable. Harry blinked and looked up at the pink lady, who smiled back at him. He hesitated. Make himself comfortable. He didn't deserve comfort though. He was a freak. Freaks deserved work and beatings. But she was warm though. Slowly, he nestled closer into the woman's lap, looking around like a frightened lizard and awaiting any signs of her deciding she was tired of him and wanted to throw him or shove him away from her. Instead, she gently snaked her arms around him. Slowly, 21 pulled Harry closer, resting her cheek on top of his head and letting out a soft coo. He was such a timid little boy. He was the cutest thing she had ever seen. She wanted to make sure he was okay. That was her main concern right now. She closed her eyes and gently stroked his back, frowning slightly at the smell and texture of his hair. These people clearly hadn't even bothered to bathe this child properly. They really did deserve her clones. Abuse. Well, now she had found the source of the power, but the question still stood, how did they get home? Was it possible? But there was a bigger and far more important question 21 had. What would happen to Harry? Keep him, was the first thought she had. She blinked at that thought and looked down at the boy with a tilted head. She certainly didn't dislike the idea, far from it, but there were just so many complications that made it a difficult concept to see through. Could she just keep him? Well, maybe not, but she kinda wanted to. He was such a cute little boy, and he seemed like he needed a good home. We don't have a home. Okay, well still, that was a problem for a later day. Plus, her other side didn't have her powers, so she couldn't hurt him, so she didn't need to worry about that. She looked back into the house and flinched when she saw the fat man slam face first against the window. There was a missing eye. Even without their powers, her other half was still a vicious, dangerous, monstrous force to be reckoned with. Thankfully, she was able to keep Harry from seeing it. The small boy's face was currently buried into her chest, trying his best to make himself comfortable. This was a new feeling for him, and he wasn't sure what to make of it. This lady had a very strong hold, strong but gentle. She was being very careful with him, taking great care not to squeeze him too hard while also making sure she held him just tight enough to keep him feeling safe and comforted. Her hair partially draped over him, and she was humming a soft tune. It was almost like a lullaby to him, but Harry was too afraid to go to sleep. He was afraid what was gonna happen to him. He had been found, and he had been told what would happen if he ever revealed himself, let alone his injuries, to anyone. His aunt and uncle were going to hurt him really badly, especially because they were being punished because of him. He was going to be hurt. They were gonna bring out the big scary beating board, and he didn't even notice as he began to tear up. 21 did, and she gently dried his tears with a finger. "Aw, it's okay, sweetie," she cooed softly. Harry looked up with wide eyes at that small gesture. He was so confused right now. "Hey, it's okay, Harry, you're safe now. You'll be well taken care of." I am. Harry mumbled. "Yup." 21 smiled. "I'm gonna take care of you." Harry looked up at her with wide, awestruck eyes, then rested his head against her chest with an utterly baffled look on his face, staring off into the distance as he tried to process what he had just been told. "Ah, cute," 21 cooed. She hummed softly as she gently stroked his messy dark hair. It was messy, grimy and rather disgusting, but 21 paid no mind to that. She had a feeling this was helping Harry warm up to her, and if he was going to come with her as was the current plan, then he needed to trust her to some regard. Even if his hair was a mess, he was still super cute, so she didn't much care. But seriously, he needed a bath. She looked back into the house through the door window and tilted her head. Evidently the beating her counterpart was inflicting was not about to stop any time soon, so there was no harm in just using their bathtub for a few minutes, right? Nodding, she carried the boy inside to bathe him. She covered his ears as the pained cries continued, and she looked around in annoyance, finally grabbing a small radio clock off the counter and taking it with her. She went upstairs, keeping Harry from seeing carnage or otherwise destruction, and found the bathroom. Setting on down, she began filling the tub, before looking back to Harry. He seemed so confused by this, so puzzled as to why anyone would ever want to help him. She just gave him a smile before turning back to the tub, making sure the water was at a reasonable temperature. She didn't want to burn him or freeze him after all. When she was satisfied with the water, she turned to Harry with a small smile. "Okay, sweetie, if you could just take your shirt off for me so I can put you in the tub," she said softly. Harry winced at that and looked down at the floor, nervously rubbing his arm. He didn't like taking his shirt off because he was even uglier without it. 21 noticed this, and slowly lifted the shirt off regardless, seeing how battered and thin he was. It was a disgusting sight to her, and she couldn't blame Harry for any of it. He was left and abused by those monsters, and she needed to help him. She really wished she had a senzu bean right now. Those things had amazing healing properties that would instantly make every single last one of these wounds go away once and for all unless they were too deeply engraved. Still, she'd settle for getting him cleaned up and warm. He clearly needed that more than anything, and the android wanted Tom help. Ending on the radio, she found something that sounded nice, and slowly set Harry into the tub. He squirmed slightly, wincing and whimpering as he grew closer and closer to the water. As he touched it, he squeezed his eyes shut and cringed in anticipation of intense heat or cold which never came. Hey, it's okay, I promise, I'm not gonna hurt you. 21 spoke softly, knowing the same couldn't be said for Harry's abusers, but she was going to keep him safe, and she was going to get him clean. Harry slowly relaxed but by bit, wincing and whimpering, despite his best efforts not to, out of fear for what would happen to him if he did, slightly as the water hit his injuries, but it felt oddly relaxing, it felt nice. He allowed the tension in his body to release and looked up at 21 with a nervous expression. She smiled back and rubbed his back gently. See? This is nice, isn't it? Nice and warm and safe. Don't you feel so relaxed right now? Yeah, just sit back and take it easy, let me take care of everything, she whispered softly to him as she reached over for the soap and shampoo to get rid of all the filth and grime. The music was a calm island guitar song, sung by someone with a thick accent, but it calmed and more importantly, distracted Harry, so she was thankful for it. There was far more dirt and grime than she originally expected, and had to really scrub him down to get most of it off. She grimaced as she noticed just how grimy the water was getting. She actually drained it multiple times in order to make sure he was actually getting clean and because she didn't want to actually touch it for prolonged periods of time. Soon enough, she was finally satisfied with the boy's cleanliness. She picked him up and wrapped him in a towel before two more thoughts came to her. Where was she going to live, and what was she going to do about her evil half? She was going to upset Harry, it wasn't an if, but when with her, and both sides did want to find a way back home, for their own reasons, yes, but still. She couldn't just leave her other half alone and unattended in this world. She may not have had their powers, but she was still much stronger than any normal human could handle. Hell, she'd wager she was around Yamcha level, maybe even Krillin. Well, maybe not that strong, but considering she felt practically nothing at all aside from Harry, and a smaller energy reading down a ways, she didn't want to leave her other half here unattended. Are you feeling better, Harry? She asked kindly. Harry looked up at her and slowly nodded his head. A little bit. It doesn't hurt too much anymore and it feels less dirty and yucky. But why is the water so nice though? Isn't it supposed to hurt? 21 was tempted to join her evil twin after hearing that. No, she said, shaking her head before poking his nose. You shouldn't be hurt, ever, you're too cute for that, you deserve to be cared for and loved. But, I'm just a freak, I don't deserve love. Harry protested, quietly. Oh my gosh, please stop saying that, that's awful, no little boy should say this stuff and really mean it. Harry was confused. He was so confused. He looked down, feeling stupid, like this was something he should have known, but being a freak, he was too stupid to know it, so therefore, he didn't know. What was he doing wrong? Why was he a freak? He didn't want to be, but everything he did made him one. He wanted to just be normal, like his aunt, uncle, and cousin. He wished this freaky stuff he always did didn't even exist. If he didn't have it, his aunt and uncle wouldn't hate him so much, and he could be happy. 21 seemed to pick up on what he was thinking inside, pulling him close and giving him another hug. It's okay, I don't think you're a freak. I think you're a cute little boy. She said with a soft smile. That's what you are, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise. But that was all anyone had ever done. They had spent so long drilling the fact that he was stupid and ugly into his head. Could he really just let all that go just because one lady said he should? Could he really just accept himself like that? He didn't think so, but 21 wasn't about to give up on him. She wanted to help him, and she wasn't going to let him hate himself for something that he had no control over. No matter what it took, she'd help him, one way or another. Hey, Harry, let's just go back outside for a little bit, okay? We can just lie down and watch the clouds. It'll be nice and relaxing and it'll take your mind off of things, okay? She asked gently, rubbing his cheek. Harry looked at her, then finally nodded. It was clear he was confused, but it was clear that didn't want to argue. It was heartbreaking, but it motivated 21 to take care of him. She'd keep him safe, and nothing would stop her. She approached the window of the bathroom and opened it up before doing something that amazed Harry to his very core. First she floated several feet off the ground, then she flew, right out the window. Harry tightened his hold onto her reflexively, and 21 laughed gently at that. "Ah, don't worry, cutie. I'm not gonna drop you," she said soothingly. Her words helped, but Harry still wasn't used to being up this high. He closed his eyes tightly, then tentatively opened one of them and slowly looked down at the ground. It was actually really cool. He was really high up, but it wasn't scary. It was exhilarating. He felt right in the sky. "It feels nice, doesn't it?" 21 asked with a smile. She noted she'd need to fly a bit more than with Harry if he was enjoying it this much. "It's so cool," Harry mumbled, still taken aback by being this high. 21 smiled warmly at the boy and gently stroked his hair. "Yes, it is pretty cool, huh? You can see quite a lot up here." Harry looked out over the neighborhood with childlike wonder. He could see everything. And it was so pretty from up here. Ma'am? What's your name?" Harry asked, realizing he didn't know who had saved him. 21 chuckled slightly and smiled at that, having a feeling this could be an interesting reaction. "My name is 21. I'm 5. No, I mean my name is 21. 21 what?" No, 21 nothing, that's just my name. You have's 21 names. Which one should I call you?" 21. The confused look on Harry's face was the cutest thing she had ever seen. He was clearly trying to figure out what to say, so he finally blinked. You're 21. I don't want to be rude, but I can't tell how old you are." "Well, technically I'm not even 1 year old yet." Technically you're older than me, but I was designed with 21 in mind." "De-designed?" Harry asked. 21 bit her lip slightly, trying to figure out what to say. How would she explain this? "Well, you see, I'm not exactly human." 21 began. "I'm an android." "A what?" "An android. Technically I'm human and robotic." "You're a robot?" "That's right." Harry was confused. "But robots are so cold and metally and you're so warm." 21 couldn't help but smile at his little remark, and gave him another warm hug. He was such a cute little boy, and he clearly meant what he asked, even if he didn't get what he was asking. "I guess I was just made from a special metal, or my inner heaters make me feel warm, one or the other, but you're very sweet for saying that." She leaned down and gave him a soft kiss on his forehead. Harry looked up, and this time, the confusion was concerning to 21. Have you never?" She struggled to form words, but the look in Harry's eyes made it clear the answer was no. "Oh, you poor thing." She pressed her lips against his forehead once more, for longer this time. "It's okay, sweetie, this is how people show that they care about each other," she said softly, rocking him in her arms. "Why, you care about me? But we just met." Harry blinked. "Yes, but you're also a sweet little boy who shouldn't have been hurt the way he was." 21 countered with a slight shrug, landing on the roof. But 21 put a finger to his lips. Don't dwell on it just now, let's just relax and look at the clouds." She laid back and stared up at the blue cloudy sky, holding Harry so he was laying on her tummy. "Ah, it's okay." 21 smiled. "Just relax, don't worry about anything, just lie back and rest." Harry seemed tentative, but did as he was told. He thought he heard something. It sounded like pain screaming, but he wasn't sure. "Hey! Keep it down." 21 mentally growled, sending a message to her other half. "Not my fault these kids scream so loud. Who names a kid Dudley? Or Priest?" Her other half replied. "Wait, there's kids in there. What the hell are you doing to them? They're children." She demanded aggressively. "Relax, all I'm doing is spanking them like their parents should have done years ago. Clearly they aren't used to being disciplined." Oh. Just like you. Hey, I did not scream when you hit me. Yes you did. Shut up or I'm breaking more of their bones. More. There was no response. 21 scowled, but didn't do anything at the moment. She wasn't sure what to do. She just sighed and leaned back again. She looked down at Harry, then frowned. She needed to confront her other side, but what would she think of Harry? 21 didn't know if there was a good side to her evil side that seemed pretty counterintuitive, but whatever, but she knew she wouldn't let her hurt Harry. No matter what that took. She let out a sigh and looked down over the edge of the roof to hear the door opening, or rather being blasted out of its hinges by a powerful physical strike. She heard her evil half let out a long sigh of pure satisfaction. It feels so good to blow off all that steam. I am in a much better mood already. She then saw her good side holding a small boy and frowned. Figured you'd be holding that BRT. Dump him and let's go. Hey. No. The good side of 21 snapped. This is Harry, he's been hurt enough, I'm taking care of him. What? You're joking, right? Her evil side deadpanned. No, I'm not. You're gonna take care of that kid I found? Yes. The evil half crossed her arms over her bust. And where exactly are you planning on living, huh? I don't know, we'll figure it out. We were literally homeless long before we came here and we're literally homeless now. Okay, so maybe her evil half had a point, but that was besides the point. She looked down at Harry and then gave him a reassuring hug. There's two of you. Harry blinked, looking between the two 21s. Yes, you can just call her 22, let's say. Android 22's eyes widened and she let out an indignant gasp. Hey. I'm the original, not you. Hi, Miss 22. Harry said, afraid of angering her. Which, he inadvertently did. What did I just say, BRT? She snapped, and was sent flying into a wall by the good side of 21. Don't you dare yell at him. 22's response was muffled because her upper half was stuck in the wall. She pressed her feet against the wall, pushing and wiggling her peach about to try and free herself to no avail. This is the third time she's gotten stuck like this today. 21 said. I'm sorry. Harry said, looking down at the floor as if he had committed an unforgivable sin. It's my fault she's angry. No, sweetie, it isn't. 21 frowned. She's just, she's just kind of like this all the time, it isn't your fault. Harry looked up at her. But I called her something she didn't like and made her mad, though I did a bad thing. No, number 22 is just mean. Approaching her evil clone, 21 scowled. After that little display, you're definitely 22 now. 22 shouted out a word which was thankfully muffled by the wall, and 21 felt like she'd be justified in kicking herself while she was stuck in a wall. Wow, that was a weird thing to think. But then again, she was an android designed and given the attributes of some of the most ferocious monsters and fighters the world had ever known, so really, that may not be the weirdest thing. But it was definitely top 10, maybe top 5. You aren't going to say things like that around Harry, do you understand? 22 responded by screaming out a series of even louder, even more intense and even more wrathful profanities that would have been enough to make even the lowliest of Scion warriors turn beet red. 21 watched on with a blank expression, closed her eyes, let out a long, deep sigh of pure disappointment. Then raised her foot and kicked 22 straight in the peach, driving her even deeper into the wall. Just ignore her, Han, 21 sighed, hugging Harry once more. She's not very nice, but she's trying to be better. Okay, so that was a lie, but she didn't want to explain her past just yet. If anything, she was nervous Harry wouldn't want to be around her anymore, but after all he had been through, the kindness 21 showed him was all Harry wanted. He heeded her words, ignoring the legs kicking wildly in the air in a desperate attempt to escape right next to him in favor of resting his tiny head against 21's BRST. She was so warm and so gentle and so nice. He didn't know what he had done to deserve such kind and delicate treatment, but he hoped it wouldn't end. 21 smiled warmly, adjusting him so he could listen to hear steady heartbeat, something he clearly enjoyed. "Don't worry, Harry. It'll be okay now," she said with a smile. "I'm gonna take good care of you, and nothing is gonna stop me from doing so." Not even 22. The other android let out an outraged shriek that neither one of them could hear due to being muffled by the wall. 21 rolled her eyes. "I think I'll wait an hour or two before I pull her out of there. She's been getting on my nerves all day." 21 left her other side in the wall and found a couch to settle down on. Setting Harry on her lap, she pulled him close and leaned back on the couch. "I still don't get it." She frowned. "What kind of powers does he have? Why did they hate him so much?" Typically, someone would ask these questions to get answers, but 21 had a feeling even Harry didn't know. Frowning, she looked over and grimaced at the sight of the two unconscious adults laying on the living room floor. "Wow. Those two are half dead." She was going at it for like an hour and a half with no breaks though, so I guess that was to be expected. If they wake up I'll be sure to confront them about this situation. She kept Harry from seeing them, having a feeling if he saw them, that would only make things worse. He's probably blame himself for this, or he'd be afraid she'd do that to him. She carefully adjusted her hold on him so that he had his face buried in her chest and gently rubbed the back of his head. "Just relax, sweetie, while I try and figure out what to do," she whispered soothingly. Harry let out a tiny coo and nuzzled down into the embrace of the woman he was beginning to see as his guardian angel. She had shown up out of nowhere, was taking care of him, wasn't yelling at him, it was everything he ever wanted. Just to be held, just to be comforted, just to be treated like a human being. He knew it was a lot to ask, but he just couldn't help himself. He prayed for it every single day of his life and now it was really happening. 21 smiled warmly at him, letting him snuggle close and yawn sleepily. It was so clear he wanted to sleep, but it was also clear he was terrified of doing so. "Hey, you can sleep, honey," she said quietly. "You can sleep, it'll be okay." Harry nuzzled in closer. "Really?" He mumbled quietly into her chest, to which she responded with a giggle. "Yes, really, take a nap, you're exhausted." Harry tried to fight it, still clearly afraid of what would happen if he fell asleep, but eventually his exhausted body gave out, and he fell asleep in 21's arms. The android had to repress a squeal of delight at how cute he looked as he snuggled up against her, sleeping soundly. She put a hand to her mouth to repress the high-pitched sound that managed to escape her mouth, then began to giggle softly. This child was just too cute for words. He was so tiny and cuddly and she was so totally in love with him already. Honestly, it was a wonder why her evil twin hadn't turned over a new life just by meeting him. Then again, she was kinda focused on conquering/killing everyone on the planet, or torturing and eating them, so that was kind of a factor. Well, if she doesn't see how cute this little cutie pie is, that's her problem. 21 shrugged, draping an arm over the sleeping Harry. She cuddled the boy close and decided she would just sit back and watch the evil half of herself struggle in the wall while he slept. 22 screamed in rage at her other half, and she just knew that she was threatening copious amounts of bodily harm on her. The good android smirked, knowing she could help her out at any time, but didn't see much reason to do so. If all she was gonna do was threaten to hurt people and swear, maybe she needed a lesson in humility. And honestly, it was just really fun to watch her evil half helplessly struggle to get herself free from the wall. After seeing how insufferably smug and ruthless she had been, this was quite a good look for her. 21 didn't care if her other side hated her. At the end of the day, there wasn't much 22 could do to hurt her, and if she hurt Harry, then it was going to end very badly for her. "So, are you his mom now?" a voice in her head asked, somewhat awkwardly. 21 blinked, then looked down at the sleeping boy in her arms. In a way, she kinda was, but she didn't want to force that on him. But at the same time, she kinda wanted to be his mom. She thought about it for several seconds, mulling it over in her head. It didn't take her very long at all to come to a conclusion. Yes. Yes, I am his mom now. She thought back to her inner voice with a smile. In all actuality, it actually did make quite a bit of sense that she wanted to be this child's mother. After all, the woman she was modeled after had been a mother, and it seemed she had retained some of that woman's aspects. So, with a warm smile, she settled down on the couch, holding Harry with both arms now, content to hold her adopted child close. Harry, for his part, honestly wished that 21 could be his mama, as she was everything he wanted in one, but believed he could never have. So, he slept the sleep of innocence, dreaming about the kind woman who had saved him. And 22 was still stuck in the wall. She would remain stuck in that wall for several hours before her sister decided it was time to pull her out. As for the Dursleys, they were going to be in a coma for the next 3 years due to the savage, prolonged beating they had both endured. As for Dudley, he was currently holed up in his room, curled in the fetal position, traumatized from his first time actually being disciplined. She wasn't sure how long she had been relaxing, but she heard something weird. It almost sounded like instant transmission, but it wasn't that. 21 also felt a surge of power, as if some newcomer arrived with powers similar to Harry's, but she still couldn't pin down what they were. Regardless, she frowned and got up, deciding she needed to see what was going on. As she walked past her trapped sibling, she narrowed her eyes and powered up slightly, not enough to disturb the sleeping Harry, but enough to hopefully intimidate whoever had decided to drop in. She was no fool, she knew that it could be some fool trying to make the child's situation worse, but she was going to make absolutely sure they knew better than to try anything funny. 1% of her power offs get the point across. She briefly debated getting 22 out of the wall, or setting Harry down, but both of those seemed like bad ideas. She didn't want to leave Harry alone right now, and 22 would probably only make things worse. Abandoning her other half to her fate, 21 stepped outside, carrying Harry and holding him in a protective manner as she stepped outside into the yard. She heard voices, "Albus, this presence is overwhelming." 21 paused, taking in what was being said. Whomever these people were could sense powers, and she could sense theirs, too. They sensed human, and it wasn't key, but finally she opened the door and looked at those who stood before her. She held the sleeping Harry tightly in her arm, and refused to let go. "I'm going to make one thing very clear before you say anything. I am much more powerful and much faster than you. I can react 700 times over before you manage to pull anything. If you have any intentions of hurting this boy or taking him away from me and keeping him with those monsters, you're better off cutting your losses and just leaving," she said sternly. There was no response, and two shared the apprehension and confusion. There were 3 older people, and 1 giant of a man, but they were clearly as shocked by the sight of, well, Android 21. Let alone Android 21 holding Harry. The pink-skinned woman could tell that whatever power she had been sensing was coming from the 4 of them, and in some regard, Harry's power was stronger than theirs. "Okay, so first off, I want to make it clear that whoever put this poor little thing in this house with those inhuman monsters is a total idiot that needs to be punched. They were abusing him. He was physically damaged. And they completely destroyed his self-esteem. He thinks he's a freak that deserves all this treatment because that was all they ever taught him. I intend to fix that," she said sternly. She noted the older woman looked with scorn and anger to the oldest man, and 21 turned her glare to him. She got the message, he was the one responsible for this. He was the one who put Harry here in the first place. He was going to regret this. I told you this would happen, yet you refused to listen, now look at this. The woman growled. The man at the very least had the decency to look shell-shocked. I never imagined that they would have ever taken their distaste for our kind so far as to physically harm him, you must believe me. Sure. I believe you. I don't think you're malicious in any way, I just think you're a senile old fool. 21 growled. He is. The older woman growled. So I'm going to give you 10 seconds to convince me not to destroy this place and you 4 along with it. 21 said, sounding more like her evil self than she ever had before. But really? She didn't care, not right now. Because I am sorry. 21 narrowed her eyes at the man. Are you now? Apologies won't heal what they did to him. The scars, the psychological trauma, it's not going away just because you're sorry. That isn't how life works, you know. 21 paused, then sighed. Talking to you is just angering me. Is he always like this? She asked, looking to the older woman who seemed equally angry. No, he truly did act with good intentions, but he didn't listen to anyone who suggested a better idea. She said crossly, and 21 noted she seemed like the only sane one in the group. And them? She asked, nodding to the other two. She softened when she looked at the giant. The man was in tears. He seemed fine. The greasy-haired man, on the other hand, was really rubbing her the wrong way with the way he was looking at Harry. His expression was one of barely concealed hatred. Hatred for a child. A child that he just found out was abused. What are you staring at? She asked the man in a low voice. That is a long story. The older woman sighed, and from her tone, it was clear she was done with everything. Well, I'm giving you 2 minutes. Go. 21 said flatly, and from the way her hand flowed with Ollie power, it was made pretty clear that she wasn't joking. The old man spoke up. His parents died when he was a baby, and I believe that this was the only safe place for the boy to defend him from his murderers. 21 was taken aback. Her child was being hunted? Not on her Watkin. But for now, she simply laughed and shook her head. Well, look how safe he was. By now, they had a better look at the sleeping Harry, seeing the remains of the wounds and scars which covered his body. Even the 121 immediately didn't like seemed appalled by this. Before you ask, they're unconscious, probably will be for a long time. Or they might be dead. Either way, it isn't my problem. My problem now is you. She said, glaring at Albus. The old man looked back at her with an expression of acceptance. I will not try to defend my rash judgment. I have indirectly caused this child that I swore to protect so much pain and suffering. He sighed softly, removed his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. I'm sorry is all I can really think to say. 21 didn't say anything, trying to control her anger. Sure, she was furious beyond words, sure, this man was an idiot, but he did seem remorseful. That didn't change anything, but still. The good android didn't want to be more like her evil counterpart. That was a dark path she feared following. She thought back to the fighters she encountered, how even after trying to kill them, most of them were willing to give her another chance. Maybe she should do the same. She took a deep breath. Okay, I can tell you feel remorse for what you did, so I'm gonna let you off the hook this time, but know this. You have a lot to do to make up for what you did to hurt Harry. She said sternly. Dumbledore closed his eyes. And nodded his head in clear understanding, accepting her words. 21 felt a sense of relief and pride in herself. Some people would look at this guy and decide he's this irredeemable monster that needed to be seen as the bad guy, but she could see that wasn't the case. He was human. An idiot. But human. He may have done this for the best intentions, but made a mistake in the process. She would give him hell for the rest of his life over this, and would never let him live this down even for a second, but she couldn't just attack him over this. That's what her side currently stuck in a wall would do, and she was trying to be better than that. She let out a sigh and nodded her head, giving the man a stern look. Like I said, you're going to have to do a lot to make up for putting him with these people. He's so beaten down and traumatized that he thinks a fresque SND that he deserved all of it, and the look that greasy-haired hook-nosed troll is giving him certainly won't help in that issue. Mind telling him to cut that out before I smack him? Minerva glared at Snape, wordlessly telling him such, and he backed off somewhat. So, explain to me why none of you ever bothered to see if he was okay, even from a distance. 21 said, flatly, raising another issue with this whole plan. We did, and from a distance, all seemed fine. And you never checked on him saying you were distant relatives, or social workers, or anything because... I am a man who wears many hats, young lady. 21 quirked a brow and the old man continued explaining. I am the headmaster of Hogwarts, but the supreme mugwump of the International Confederation of Wizards and the chief warlock of the Wizengamot. 21 stared blankly the old man. I don't even know what any of that is. Are you completely senile? What are you talking about? They are wizards, and I'm a witch. The woman remarked simply, and 21 gave them a flat look. Right. She said. Sure, she knew magic existed, she had seen it in her home world. But this was all so bizarre, she didn't know how to react. So that means Harry is a wizard too then, huh? She asked, looking down at the child sleeping soundly in her embrace. Yes, and a very famous one at that. He is single-handedly responsible for the death of the most powerful dark wizard of our age. Dumbledore replied. I mean that's not the weirdest thing I've seen or heard of before. 21 conceded, thinking about the ones she had been dealing with before coming here. She had seen transforming warriors, aliens, cyborgs, androids look in the mirror, but this was a bit much. Perhaps if it wasn't all at once, she wouldn't be so baffled by it all. The idea that this child, this tiny innocent little child, was capable of defeating a powerful Dark Lord at such a young age was unreal to her. But then it certainly wasn't unheard of. Gohan was a perfect example of a child being a hardened warrior. Still, she didn't like the idea that her child was the only one able to stop some Dark Force, and she liked the idea that leaving him here was the best option to hide him. She had many mixed feelings about all this, but she knew for certain that Harry wasn't leaving her side. Then she narrowed her eyes and looked Dumbledore dead in the eyes. I'll kill all of the rest of his followers, Mysore. I'll make sure not to leave a single one of them roaming this planet. No one will get away with hurting my son. While that would be helpful, it would also be problematic. Minerva said, a little unnerved by how determined 21 was with what she was saying. Many of them are in prison, or are so well hidden it's hard to determine where they are. Then I'll storm that prison and make a more permanent solution to the issue. As for the ones in hiding, just describe to me what I'm looking for and I'll track them all down, no problem. This was uncharacteristically bloodthirsty for her, but she was a very angry mother who wanted justice for her child. It was also clear from the power emanating off of her, that the magic these four could use may be effective, but it couldn't stop her. We cannot sanction such a thing. Minerva said sternly. And if you do care for young Harry, you do best to try and keep such fury under control. MRGH fair. 21 sighed. Don't want him thinking I'm like his family over there. She frowned down at Harry and squeezed him gently. Or like my other half, she thought, rolling her eyes. As if on cue, the front door swung open and Android 22 stomped out with a murderous expression and bits of drywall stuck in her hair. How long were you planning on leaving me stuck in the wall, huh? How long are you going to threaten to kill everyone? Until it stops being a legitimate threat. Then there's your answer. Screw you. 22 snarled, annoyed. I was kind of hoping you would give up and just live there. Why would I do that? Because you'd be much less of a hassle that way. I swear, someday you're gonna be the one in the wall. Keep telling yourself that, 22. That's not my name, you dumb foo. 22 began, but was punched back into the house. Thankfully, she didn't get stuck in a way this time, and stormed back out, angrily. Not in front of Harry. 21 ordered. She simply growled in response. 21 realized that a lot of their actions lately had been a bit out of character for them. She wasn't this aggressive before, and her clone had always been so smug and sadistic. Guess it was the stress and frustration of the situation. Maybe it was because now she had a child she had rescued from unimaginable hardships, and wanted to do everything in her power to protect and care for, that this anger was rising from a place of genuine love, not malicious cruelty like her other half. That made sense, and she argued it was the case after everything she and Harry had gone through. She was honestly not feeling up to dealing with her evil half's petulant cruelty or these four wizards' ineptitude. She liked to think she was a good, kind person who could show plenty of compassion, but she had her limits that they were all pushing. She let out a sigh and tried to push the negativity away for the time being. I really don't have the patience to deal with you right now. So unless you want to spend the rest of your days half-berries in a way or the ground, I strongly recommend you stop talking. 21 finally snapped, looking at her other half with anger she didn't know she had. Android 22 simply scowled in response and turned away with a huff, sticking her nose up in the air, prompting 21 to roll her eyes and let out a deep sigh. She looked back to the wizards who were trying to piece together what in the world was happening before them right now. This is my, sister, I guess. I'm not your sister. I'm you. 22 snapped. 21 sighed, knowing her other side was going to make this complicated. She's me, yes. Technically speaking, she's my evil side. It's a long story, and I'm not nearly ready to even begin to explain it to any of you. 21 muttered, then Minerva. Except her, and maybe him. She nodded to the giant. The giant of a man burst into tears and rushed forward, snatching the both of them up in a tight hug. I'm sorry fair bringin' in air. Would been better off with Sirius Black, would've. 21 still had all her power. She could take the giant's embrace with no issues whatsoever, though she did have to adjust how she held Harry to compensate for that. 22, on the other hand, DMN neared had her spine snapped like a twig. It took a few minutes, but he finally seemed to calm down somewhat, and 22 asked the obvious question. So why'd they want this kid dead so badly? SH looked back to the damaged house. They just hated the BRT. Was there some magical reason for that? You heard all that while you were screaming profanities with your head stuck in a wall? 21 asked, turning to her clone. Hey, I still have some power. Just nothing that'll win me most fights, 22 grumbled in response, crossing her arms with a pout. But that is a good question. Why did his family hate him so much? 21 asked, not having heard an answer to that. The Dursleys were always less than human. Snape remarked coldly. No sh. 22 cut in flatly. Petunia hated her sister for having powers, for being accepted to a world she could never achieve. Her hatred was simply because of her own lack of powers. I thought it was because she looked like the result of cross-breeding a horse with a warthog, but I guess that makes sense. Do you always have to be so cynical? 21 asked, annoyed. Remember what she did to the kid? Okay. Fine. Snape had to smirk slightly despite himself, rather amused by the other woman's bitter attitude towards her sister. Quite. Unfortunately, somehow the discrimination was entirely on Petunia's end. Of course. She had power and she didn't. Worms fear what's stronger than them. 22 said. So you're saying you're afraid of me then, sis? 21 asked with a smirk before using her hand to muffle the other android's tantrum. Your sister seems to have quite the odd superiority complex. She would do well to work on that. Minerva said sternly. I know she's EP. 21 yelped and pulled her hand away when her clone licked it. Keep your pink squishy hands to yourself. 22 snapped. Then stop threatening to kill everyone. No. You need therapy. 21 said flatly. And you need to stop telling me what to do. If you weren't insane, I would. I'm not. What's insane about wanting to kill a few billion people indiscriminately? Everything. Then they should be less delicious. The wizard started at this. Don't worry. She can't do that anymore. 21 reassured them. But if I could. You're digging yourself into a rut. And you're a goody two-shoes moron. Honestly, were you always this much of a child? No, this happened after you had to start trying to change everything. They were going to kill you. You were going to kill me. Yes, a sacrifice I am fine with making of it means no one else is harmed by your lunacy. I'll show you lunacy. Before you ask. Yes. She is always like this. 21 said, looking back to the others. Then noticing Harry beginning to wake up. She put a finger to her lips with a stern glare directed at her clone, then turned her attention to Harry with a smile. Come on, sweetie, time to wake up now. Harry slowly stirred, having been having a decent dream for once. A dream about a pretty pink woman who saved him from his family. As he began to wake up, he felt the dread and cold fear gripping his body as he knew what came next. Chores, beatings, loneliness, not always in that order, so it was rather shocking when he slowly opened his eyes, and saw the pretty pink woman smiling down at him. He blinked owlishly at her and she let out a soft giggle. Ah, hey, sweetie, did you sleep good? Harry didn't know how to respond. Words failed him. She was real. She was still here with him. She wasn't no. He was still dreaming. He had to be. After all, nothing good ever happened to him. Any second, he was going to wake up back in that cupboard. He really didn't want to go and get his hopes up. 21 just pulled him closer, rubbing his back to help him wake up. Ah, it's okay, Harry. You don't need to be afraid, I've got you now. You're safe, remember. You're never gonna be treated like you were with your old family. Never again. I promise you that. Her words worked, as Harry melted into her embrace, sighing softly in relief. If this was still a dream, there was no harm in enjoying it a little more, right? Android 21 turned to look at the small group before her, her evil clone included, with a stern glare. These people all have something they want to say to you. Android 22 quirked a brow. You are going to apologize for yelling at him earlier. 21 hissed angrily. 22 responded by stomping her foot and letting out a long, agonized "Ch." But dash. No, it wasn't your fault. It wasn't. 21 cut Harry off. Don't think it was. You did nothing wrong. But I dash. Harry, it's okay. It was a mistake, and you aren't to blame for it. Oh. 22 muttered something under her breath. Care to repeat that? 21 asked in a low voice, her energy flaring up around her as she gave her clone a death glare. Sray. So he can hear you, dear sister. Sorry. Harry looked at her, then nodded. He still felt bad. It was his fault she was angry, she shouldn't be apologizing to him. This was his fault. Good. 21 nodded. She held him so that his head was against her chest, then turned to the small group of wizards with a stern glare. Well? She asked impatiently. There wasn't a response right away, and it was clear none of them knew what to say or how to explain this. It was also clear Harry didn't know who these people were or what they had done. 21 noted this and bit her lip, unsure of what to say next. They needed to apologize, absolutely, but when they did, Harry would realize just whose fault it was that he was saddled with such awful, disgusting people. She had no idea how he would react to that. Well, may as well try for the best. Harry. I don't think you'll remember these people. But they know you. 21 said. Well, I mean, wow, this is harder than I thought. They're the ones who left you here. 22 said bluntly. Oh. Okay. Harry said simply. The wizards were taken aback at just how accepting the child was at this revelation. They had expected at least a little bit of resentment. But he treated the situation like it was just normal. Well, that or he was too afraid to comment on this. 21 had a feeling it was the latter. Harry was a little boy who was confused beyond words, to put it mildly, and now she had to find a way to ensure he didn't break further when she explained all this to him. The issue was, she wasn't sure how. Why? Harry finally worked up the courage to ask. Because I believed it was what was best for you, dear boy. This was supposed to be a safe haven for you, a place where you could live safely until the time came for you to attend schooling. But in the end, I was very wrong. I blindly threw my trust into the worst sort of people, and you are the one who paid the price for it. Harry squirmed in 21's arms and found the ground very interesting. 21 hugged him reassuringly, not wanting him to break completely, but also knowing he needed to know this, even if it was painful. It's okay, sweetie. That's all over. 21 said quietly to Harry, who leaned against her, but didn't look up. This was a place where he had been meant to feel safe and happy, but it ended up being totally the opposite. Why did he have to go here specifically? Wasn't there some other place he could have gone where he wouldn't have been hated so much? This was something 21 wanted to know, too. As if she was honest, that answer would decide how much pain these four would be leaving in. She didn't think the old man intentionally left Harry to suffer, but at the same time, he had left Harry here and he had suffered. Despite being good, she couldn't just ignore the horrors her newly adopted son had gone through here. She knew that it was to protect the boy from evil wizards or whatever, but there was no way those people were the only family he had left. Surely there was someone out there that could take him to a safer, more secluded place. Wait, she sensed something. It was some sort of magical energy, similar to that of the old man's, surrounding the house. Could that be the reason for the boy's placement here? Some sort of spell. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 2. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and Gamer95 on FANFICTIONnet. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.